And today we'll just talk about how we can use simple principles of Chinese medicine and Taoism, which is what Chinese medicine is based on, just to help us overcome a crisis, any crisis, but also this one. Now, let's see if I can share my screen. So how do I do that? I just share screen and this. Can you all see that? Yeah? Good. That's a quote by someone called Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor. And it's when we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And I thought that suited quite well the current situation. Is that moving? Oh, God, it's not moving, is it? There we go. Didn't want to move. So the Chinese for crisis is Wei Ji, which is made up of two characters. The first being Wei, which means risk or danger, and the second, which is Ji, which means it has been translated as opportunity, but it's really when things begin to change. So the character holds the potential to overcome the danger. That is the idea that there's like the yin and yang in the same word, which is something that happens so often in Chinese Chinese language, but also Chinese cosmology and Chinese medicine. So I thought that was an interesting take on the whole thing, just to think that for them crisis isn't just necessarily something horrible and scary and bad. And I'll just use something that maybe, well, I suppose most of you have seen before, which is the yin yang, which also kind of builds up on the same idea. So there's the black and the white, the yin and the yang, and they represent the opposite, but also that everything in life and in the world is relative. So there's no darkness without light, no yin without yang, but also you can see in the black there's a tiny little bit of white, and in the white a tiny little bit of black, which conveys the idea that everything holds the potential for its opposite. Yin creates yang, yang creates yin, and everything's always changing. And life is a constant cycle of transformation. So in that constant change, although as much as we may want to hold on to things as they are because we don't like change as a species, life is about change and transformation. So how do we kind of find balance within that change, especially when it's quite rocky, like it can be at the moment? Well, we can use different techniques just to be present. And the reason why that's important is because I suppose we have to remember that we're not what happens to us. We're very much, how we react to life is what defines us rather than what happens to us. I mean, obviously events are important, but our reaction, our emotional response, which may sometimes be subconscious, it may be learned behavior, something we've learned from our families or from society or from our culture. It's just a reaction. It's not just the event. And there's a nice, I'm going to read you something if I can find it. There's a nice little story. It's the Taoist farmer story. So this is the story of an old farmer who had worked his crops for many years. One day his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. Such bad luck, they said sympathetically. Maybe, the farmer replied. The next morning the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. How wonderful, the neighbors exclaimed. Maybe, replied the old man. The following day his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbours again came to offer their sympathy for what they called his misfortune. Maybe, answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbours congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. Maybe, said the farmer. I mean, that's an extreme example of how to not get drawn into the drama of things. In Taoism, there's a concept called the Wu Wei, which is non-doing. So you don't let yourself be bothered by anything that happens, which I think if you're an enlightened being, that's probably easier to achieve. But it's just to kind of illustrate my points about the fact that, things happened, but our interpretation of it can vary greatly, and that is actually what defines how we live our life, whether we think of things as a happy event or a lucky event, or we just go, yeah, well, that's what happened and I'll just carry on with my life. And yeah, let's look at the slide. So there are different ways to have a bit more perspective on things, and all of them tend to make us be more present, more in the moment. So there's breathing techniques, like we did a really nice breathing exercise yesterday with Sarah, who was doing the talk. There's meditation techniques, so there's mindfulness, there's techniques where you can do visualization or focus on your breath, on your body, body scan. Qigong, which is something used in Chinese medicine for medical purposes, but it also uses the breath and the movement. It's not the main purpose of it, but the side effect of it is that you will be present and you will be calmer. Then there's EFT. I mean, there's loads of techniques, so you can try and find what works best for you. You might prefer something that makes you sit still or makes you move. Some people struggle with meditation because it's too static, although really it's just about practice. So I'm just going to move my screen a little bit because I'd like to talk you through a short Qigong exercise. I'm going to be standing up for this, but you can do it sitting down. It's just to do lower abdominal breathing. So feel free to stand up or not. Feel free to switch off your camera if you want to do it in the privacy of your home. It really is up to you. Right, so let's try and just have that not fall perfect. So in Qigong, there are lots of exercises doing many things, but we'll just do a little bit of breathing. So generally in Qigong, you're standing up. I think I'll need to move this a bit, sorry. So you can see my wings a bit. Generally you do it standing up, but as I said, for the purpose of this exercise, you can just stay sitting down on a chair or cross-legged on the floor, whatever is going to feel comfortable. So the aim will be to take the breath down as far as we can, without forcing, always without forcing. So I'll be standing up. So if you're standing up, sorry, you can't see my feet, but shoulder width apart, roughly. And then release the tension in your knees. So if they're locked, just release that slightly. And then drop your pelvis towards the ground. So if you go on my tiptoes, just drop your pelvis a little bit so your coccyx is facing down rather than back. And in this unlocking the knee and bringing the pelvis down, it will slightly lower the center of gravity, and that makes it easier to breathe in down. Then if you're standing up, widen your upper back slightly. So that means slide your shoulder blades slightly away from each other, like this. I'll get a bit closer so you see, like this. And leave a little bit of space under your armpits. It may not feel so comfortable because it's not a position we usually hold, And then the front of the body just stays relaxed. So just maybe have a quick check if you've never done this, just to make sure that you're not holding too much tightness anywhere. So now, with your hands slightly in front of you, basically put your hands in front of your lower abdomen so you kind of feel a connection with that area. If you're sitting down, you can just put your hands below your belly button on your lower abdomen, gently holding that. So standing up with the palms turned in, and we mentally connect to the belly area, and we try and feel it with the palm if we can. So now we're going to start the breathing itself. Breathing through the nose, and try to have the feeling that the breath goes all the way down to your lower abdomen. That area is really important in Qigong. It's called the lower dantian, and that's where we hold, that holds the reserves of energy, the Jing. So it's really important to care for that area as well as possible. Now we'll just practice for a few breaths or a couple of minutes. So breathing through the nose, and try and bring the breath down to the lower abdomen, and breathe out, and carry on. As you're doing this, just make sure that you're not forcing the breath, that you're not trying to go faster or slower, or whatever is the most natural, relaxed pace is the right pace for you. And as you do that, breathing in and out, see if you can get the feeling that the breath goes all the way down, or try and follow it as far as it goes. It might not go all the way down. It would over time if you practice, if it's something that you're struggling with. Carry on breathing as I'll just explain a few things. So that the largest area of expansion of the lungs is downwards, obviously. And the lower part of the lung is also, interestingly, the best supplied with blood vessels. So if you breathe in the lower part of your lungs, as you would if you're trying to expand and breathe into your belly, as we're doing, you get better oxygenation. So if you're not used to abdominal breathing, as I said, you may feel that your breath only can get down here or here or here. It's just a matter of time, but just see if at least you can get the breath to feel softer and your body to feel a little bit more relaxed with it. And it's important that we go at our own pace, not too fast. So maybe breathe in and out. And breathe in and out. And a couple more breaths in and out. And in and out again. You can also use a slight variation on this, which is if you make loose fist, not tight, just loose fist. If you're sitting down, if you've got enough space to do that, you can. So just take loose fists on your, just below your rib cage. So it's not quite the lower back, it's just about here. So my rib cage goes down there. It's level with the kidneys. So put your hands there, and you might feel that it's actually quite nice to have a bit of support in your lower back. And now we're going to try and imagine that we're breathing in through the belly button, through the navel. And as you take a breath into the core, we'll imagine that the breath extends all the way through into the lower back. It's a bit like trying to breathe if the lungs were all the way down there. So we'll take a few breaths like that as well. Same thing, breathing in through the nose. And out. And again, but imagine you're breathing through the belly button. And you might feel that, and out, that the lower back is expanding as you're breathing in. And that it's retracting as you're breathing out, obviously. But you might get more of an awareness of the expansion of the lower back, and possibly also how it's getting more relaxed, how the area is more relaxed as you're doing that exercise. And now maybe just notice how you're feeling, how your breath feels, whether it feels softer, whether it's become slower, whether your body feels more relaxed, whether your mind's gone quieter. And this kind of exercise is fairly simple, but you can practice it as long as you like and as often as you like, as long as you never force it. So I'll just go back to sitting now. So this is just one of the many ways you can work with your breath and work with your body to be more in the moment, be more present. I mean, it's something that's been talked about a lot at the moment because I think people need it, and mindfulness had become more fashionable anyway. So I think it's, people are more receptive to these ideas, but it's really, really important just to bring ourselves into our bodies and in the moment, because we're forever running, racing, thinking of what's next, worrying about the future, being sad about the past, and trying to be present in the moment in terms of, just to bring it back to the crisis, in terms of helping us deal with stressful situations and with crisis. When we do an exercise that makes us more present, it will help us a little bit, be a bit more like the farmer and care a little bit less about things. But it also, in terms of what it does to the brain waves, it brings us to a state of alpha and theta waves. I'm just going to see if I can change that. Yeah. So there are different levels of brain waves, and when we're living our lives, generally we're in beta, gamma when we're very stressed, high alpha if we're not doing too badly, and then when we go into a deep relaxation or dreams or meditation, we get into the theta kind of waves. And the interesting thing is that's also the space or the place we need to get to for our creativity to blossom, really. And I think when we've got a crisis or a problem that we can't really work out how to solve, if we stay in the reactivity and the emotional reaction to things, we'll invariably just use the same behavior that we've always done, or choose the reaction that's expected of us. We're not going to be very creative about things. And I think using any of the techniques that I mentioned will help us be a bit more creative and think outside the box, and see options where we might not have seen any options. And I think, especially in the current situation for those of us who work or who feel really stuck, it's crucial to try and give ourselves as many tools as we possibly can, just to try and, well, firstly, calm down, because that's key for our health, but also enable us to see different options and to be creative about what we do with our life, and be open to change and try something new, be open to new ideas, be open to rewrite your story. And you might realize that the path you had been following that you're not very happy with, you can change, you can go down another route, and that's just, if you're looking at this image, it's, by taking the time to stop and be present, you're able to see the fork in the path. If you're constantly rushing, you can't take if you're driving really fast, you can't take a sharp turn to the right, you can't do it. If you're taking your time and you're stopping, you can see the different path, and you can choose which one to try if you're going to try something new. So here, just as a little summary, it's important to notice the trigger and whatever emotional response you might be stuck into, whether it's worry, whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety. All of these are appropriate reactions to have in a crisis, but if they last for too long, it becomes pathological, and it hinders your progress in life. And from a Chinese medicine perspective, it also affects your health in so many ways. So when you notice the trigger, when you notice that you're quite worried and you can't stop worrying about something, or you're feeling anxious about the future, or about coronavirus, about money, or your job, take that as a key that it's time to try and be a bit more present and to take a pause. And then you might see those 2 or 3 rows, and then you can choose the path again and change direction. So yeah, in short, I think those techniques, apart from being helpful in terms of managing stress and helping us with our health, I think they give us options, and they help us to grow, and to follow our path, which in Taoism is what is the life path. It's what you're supposed to be on, and when you're on it, as opposed to following what everyone else is expecting of you, everything flows. So then it's less hard work, you're happier. It tends to be more, it will bring you more happiness, but it will bring you more success as well, because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in this life, rather than trying to live up to other people's expectations, for instance. So yeah, that's my take on things. And I think, if you haven't done it before, it'd be quite nice just to give it a try and see what comes of it, and take that first step. And I'll just finish with a little quote by Lao Tzu, who's a Taoist, or who was a Taoist. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So I think if we can try and take a step and take a risk in a different direction, we might find that we come out of this whole crisis, however hard it might be to get through it, we might come out of it a lot better off than we went into. I think it's, it can be taken as not just hardship, it can be taken as a gift of time, not so much for those of us who are moms, but it's a gift to be forced to just be still and reflect. How often have we ever had that in our lives? I know I have. I haven't really. I have, when I've taken myself to a meditation retreat on purpose for 10 days, but it's everyone at the moment is forced to be doing that, and I think that also has a whole different impact. It's one thing to do it by yourself, but at the moment we all have the opportunity to do that, and I think that that brings things to a whole different level. So.
Oh, can I just ask you a question based on your talk? Thank you, by the way. It was really lovely. I really enjoyed it. I know nothing at all about Qigong and you know, any of that. So I found it really interesting. And I just wanted to ask you, or interesting introduction. And very bizarre holding that posture. It's a very strange. Yeah. I felt my belly was very heavy. It was quite an it was like very calming, but you're not, you know, you're used to always like bringing so much up.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and I thought you associate that with kind of, you know, lifting and all that kind of, but to bring that energy down into that like heavy, you know, my belly felt swollen, which is kind of the opposite to what I'm always trying to do, right? It's like to poke out my belly as much as possible. But it was really interesting, and I did actually end up relaxing a lot. But you mentioned a lot Taoism. I know nothing about that. Could you? I know it's a very large thing, but you've mentioned it a lot when I hear you speak. And I think Tao, and is it Tao and Tao? Is it Taoism?
Well, the thing is, it's Tao, but it's just the translation of the Chinese word. So it's the sound is between Tao and Tao. It's been translated in 2 different ways, but it's the same thing. It's the same word. That's the trouble when not even translating, but when using Chinese words in Western. With Western alphabet, because it's really hard to transcribe rather than translate. But Taoism is I think it predates. Well, it does predate Buddhism, but there are a number of similarities in terms of. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about it too long, but there are a lot of similarities in terms of how you try not to get too wrapped up into things. But Taoism is very much about trying to follow nature and not go against nature, be it nature outside or your nature inside. So not go against your body's needs, not go against your path in life, not go against obviously the nature that surrounds you. And there's something that's, I think I mentioned, which is Wu Wei when I was talking about the old farmer. And Wu Wei is doing without doing. So it's that whole idea of living life down the path of least resistance. So it can be seen in some ways as lazy, and some of the Taoist sages way back when were kind of in a way taking the piss with life, as in they wouldn't really do anything. But it's the idea is that by doing that, you're not fighting nature. You're just going with
the flow,
whatever the river of life is taking you. Saying that, it doesn't mean that you're just sitting back doing nothing, but it's you're taking part in it, but you're trying to control things a lot less than probably we're trying to these days in life. So in Taoism they talk a lot about balance and harmony with nature. So yeah, it is about trying to find a point of balance and yeah, not control things, and be quite humble about even our position in the universe and how small we are compared to everything else, and how we need to be humble and just accept what life throws at us. I don't know if that helps. Yeah. The thing is, I could go in so many different things but that's what. So that's a school of thought, Taoism, and Chinese medicine was born out of. It was born out of that. Actually, it was born in a similar time, but it's a lot of the concepts of Chinese medicine of harmony with, because they view the body, or the human body, as the cosmos within the cosmos. So just like you have the world out there with seasons and with trees and rivers and cold and darkness and heat and the stars, and I mean you can go quite far. In the same way, within the body we have rivers. In fact, a lot of acupuncture points have names that mean river, that mean gorge, that mean the body is like a little universe in and of itself, and it's also prone to heat and cold. And so in the same way, the outside world needs to be in balance so that you don't have too many catastrophes, because the Chinese at the time had a lot of floods, and there were a lot of disasters, including pandemics actually. So they were very aware of the power of nature, and similarly within us, we need to care for our inner universe, which is rivers of energy and blood, but also our emotions, which it's all linked together.
And so your practice then involves, because when in my very Philistine notion of Chinese medicine, I have like evocations of old men in beards making mushroom tea. Like I have no idea. That is literally, if you ask me what Chinese medicine was, that's what I would think. So, and so your practice is actually a very, from what I understand, a very multifaceted one, which then involves things from acupuncture to using things like qigong. So it's all about kind of taking that concept that you just were speaking about and using different, I guess, tools to regulate those environments. Is that it? So it can be qigong, it can be acupuncture. Is that what it is?
I mean, first and foremost, I'm trained in acupuncture, so that's my core practice, say. But within Chinese medicine, there's, in equal measure, actually, there's acupuncture, there's herbal therapy, which is maybe what you're thinking of with the old man with the beard making mushroom tea. Qigong, medical Qigong is also a part of Chinese medicine. Then there's Tuina, which is a form of massage. And then there's the energetics of food. So all of these things have an energetic weight to them. So you can, if you're trying to clear heat from the body, say, because someone's got a rash which is red and very itchy and feels hot, you can use acupuncture. You can use herbs that will be used because they clear heat, generally because they also resonate with the skin, but you will use herbs that clear heat, just to keep it simple. You can do qigong exercises that might, that would focus more on, depending on what's going on, if it's the skin, qigong might not be so enough, but you can do qigong exercises that would nourish the yin side of things, which is the calmer side, the cooler side of ourselves, whereas the yang is the hotter one. You could use food as well, very much so. Some foods are more cooling, others more heating, others more. You can use food as medicine, almost, almost totally. If you're quite serious about it, and you're including a lot of the herbs that are used in herbal medicine, quite a good amount of them are food grade kind of herbs. So you've got orange peels, you've got cinnamon, you've got also lots of weirder kind of herbs that you've never heard of, but there's licorice, which is very common. So you can incorporate that within the diet, and you can really help someone with diet as well.
Fascinating. Thank you. That was great.
So yeah, I hope that was a little bit helpful, or at least enjoyable.
Both helpful and enjoyable.
Excellent. That was the aim.
It was interesting as well. Sorry, go on, Agnes.
Very good idea to do that, Carole.
Well, actually, we should thank Catherine, because she's the instigator of this whole thing.
Thank you.
I instigate things,
It wasn't my idea.
and then people like Carole do them in an amazing way. So
It
really,
wasn't my
thank
idea
you.
to put myself on a computer screen talking to people, but I enjoy it. It's nice. Yeah. But thank you, Catherine, as well, for organizing.
It was interesting because yesterday we had the we had the breathing exercise, and that was lovely, but it felt like today was almost using the technique of breath, but including your body far more in that technique. So I had a really bad tension on my back when we started this call, and through the breathing through my belly button and into the back, I actually noticed how that tension relieved quite a bit, and I shall continue doing that breath when we finish because that was really lovely. So thank you.
Good. Yeah, I mean, Qigong is, I remember the first time I did it, I was, as you were saying, I was actually really uncomfortable because they were making that posture of having your armpits, just leaving space under your armpit. I think that must have caused an incredible amount of tension up here, and I was finding it really hard to hold. And then there are postures where you've got your arms out there and you hold it for a while because you're holding a ball of energy, and yeah, that was excruciating. But you can actually, the thing is with practice, at the beginning, I suppose you're using your body muscles a lot more. And with practice, it just becomes more of a weightless exercise, as in you're holding, but it feels like you're being held as well. So a lot of the discomfort I originally had, I don't really have now if I do the same kind of thing. So, but it's a very unnatural posture.
It's just a strange, also just the direction of sending it that deep into the belly is quite a strange, you never kind of, yes, it's a very, how can I put it? It's quite it's like a bearing down, in a way. And is the function of that though to energize that area that you were talking about, which is supposedly?
Yeah, the lower abdomen in Qigong and in Chinese medicine as well is, where the deepest reserves of energy lies. So that's what you want to nourish. That's what you want to care for as much as possible, because that's what's going to hold you and carry you through your life. So a lot of the exercises, I'm just trying to think. I mean, even when you're doing exercises more for the lungs, so you're more bringing things from up high. Very often you bring it down. Even with your movement, you will bring it down to the lower abdomen. That's where you want to store. Actually, yeah, it's a store. A lot of the acupuncture points down there are about storing and about richness and about, yeah, it's a big reserve.
And that's your digestive area, is that right? That's near
It's
your.
It's a little bit lower down. I mean, sorry. The body is separated roughly in three. So there's the chest, then there's the middle, which is between the ribs, the bottom of the rib, or the thoracic cage there, and the belly button. That, in terms of Chinese medicine, that's more the digestion, which is where the stomach and the spleen and pancreas are, and the liver and the gallbladder. And the lower region, although there's obviously digestion going on with the intestines, it's more, what's probably more valued is the fact that this is level with, on the back, with your kidneys, which are like the battery that keeps us going, and also at the front